Welcome to Career High, where we dive deep into school district scandals. Just kidding. Career High spotlights visionary educational leaders who are heading up the charge in career connected learning. I'm your host, Jeremy Smith, the co founder and CEO of Pegasus. But more importantly, my guest today is Chris Carter, the principal of Northside High School in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Chris, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Man, Jeremy, thank you. It's always fun to get to talk to people who are hitting the charge, if you will, and trying to make young people better citizens. And I appreciate you inviting me onto this podcast. I enjoy talking about something I'm very passionate about. So I look forward to this discussion.
Excellent. So, perfect place to get started. If you want to tell us a little more about yourself as well as your school, would love to hear it.
Great. Yeah, my name is Chris Carter. I appreciate the introduction. This is my 30th year in this business. I've spent 27 of those years as an administrator, either as an assistant principal, athletic director, or building principal in 2 states. My career has taken me from Arkansas to Oklahoma, back to Arkansas, where over the last 10 or 12 years, I've been the building principal in 2 different districts. I got my first building, I guess, about 10 years ago in a little town in South Arkansas called Magnolia. It's right on the Arkansas-Louisiana border, where we really made some serious leaps towards not only our academic focus, but also with our career tech ed stuff, which I think is something that you're very passionate about.
Yes.
And spending some time down there was a really jumping off point for me to get my feet wet in the career and tech ed side of the fence, because as an assistant principal, you're battling fires daily and not really getting into the meat of the programs or the instructional practices of teachers. But as the building principal, I really enjoyed some cool discussions about career tech ed. One of the things that I'm extremely proud of down in Magnolia, and then I'll transition to where I'm at today, if that's okay. There's a program called Boundless Learning, who a friend of mine named Debbie Fleming, and she wouldn't mind me mentioning her name, challenged me to have a career tech ed class that would be a co-taught class or an inclusion class for students with special education, IEPs. It had never been done before. And so we focused on agri, which is a big deal in South Arkansas when you have timber and agriculture. And so we focused on a class of students where we were able to have a co-taught class of agri, focusing on the balanced learning model of inclusion. And I'm going to tell you, Jeremy, that thing took off to where those kids today, all of those students, show animals at the state fairs.
No kidding.
Yeah, I wish I had some pictures I could flash up on, but I don't. I wasn't prepared. But it's taken off now to where those teachers in Magnolia, and I know that Skipper Ward, the superintendent down there, wouldn't mind me saying his name either. He's a fabulous guy. Those teachers down there have really bought into this whole process. And now those kiddos are just absolutely exploding, if you will, with that career tech ed piece in the agri side. They have a dog grooming class now down there now that they make a little money. It's got a little bit of financial generation going. Or generating going, and it was really fun to see all of that.
Yeah.
So then
absolutely.
you fast forward after 6 years in that position, I was lucky enough to get the principal's job here at Northside High School, where I'm actually from. This is my hometown. I went to school here, and
Literally in that building.
In this building, yes. And I'll be honest with you, 35 years ago, I'm 54. 35 years ago, when I was a senior in high school, if somebody would have looked at me and said, in 35 years, you're going to be the principal at Northside High School, I would have done exactly what you're doing. Died laughing. Because, there was a time when I wasn't much of a scholar and enjoyed my teenage years, if you know what I mean. But anyway, I'm now and have been the last 4 years the building principal here at this, I'll call it a large urban school. We have about 22 to 2,400 students in it. That's 912. Approximately 140, 50 staff members, teachers. All in the building, you're looking at probably 250 staff members when you talk about classified staff. We are a multicultural school. Our students, when they leave our school and go home, they speak 49 different languages in their home. We're one of the most diverse high schools in the country.
That's 49. I
But
mean,
we celebrate this,
yeah,
and that's the beauty of it.
absolutely.
And I may be so bold to talk just briefly about where we were academically to where we are today,
Absolutely.
which encompasses the whole career tech ed side of the fence too, because we believe in a holistic approach of teaching kids. And we think that belonging in something is where it's at, whether that be a career pathway or whether it be a collegial pathway. 3 years ago, the state of Arkansas gives a grade basically based on your Atlas. Well, it was NWEA last year or 2 years ago, but it's a high stakes exam that we give in the spring. And we were a D school 4 years ago.
Right.
And we have now, last year's grading came out in July, and we're a B.
That's amazing.
We,
In 4 years.
in 4 years, we showed that much growth by just by building a blueprint, if you will, of instructional practices.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, how do you do such a quick turnaround?
Well, we focused on what I'm going to call a shift of culture and support along with accountability. And so what that sounds like is being more visible and being proactive when it comes to our presence in the building, our hallways, our classrooms, prioritizing obviously student learning above all else. We didn't make excuses for what we were going to do. I didn't want to hear that kids can't read. I didn't want to hear the kids can't do math. We let go of all of those excuses that we could come up with to be okay with a D, if you will.
Right.
We also empowered parents as partners, which I think is a big deal. We started getting parents back in our building. Of course, COVID really was a speed bump in all of this process. Now that that's beginning, obviously, that's beginning to lay down a little bit. We're starting to see more parents in our buildings. We're calling them for the good things, not just the bad things, if you will. And then that was year 2 of my tenure here. And then last year, our focus was foundational support, what I'm going to call sustaining growth, where we elevating teacher expertise. We relied on them. We used buzzwords like teacher efficacy. We gave them autonomy, these educational buzzwords, and try to remember that it's not just these tested areas, because a lot of the conversations, Jeremy, we had were with our elective classes, which encompasses that CTE piece, which is the Pegasus 6 thing that you're working towards. And so we had this holistic approach of instructional practices, including those career tech ed teachers, not letting them think that, well, we're not important. They're actually more, I won't say more important, but just as important as these course instructional teachers.
More important than they historically been considered to be.
Right. That's exactly right. They were more important than they thought they were, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
And man, when we really started having these conversations with all of these teachers about you matter, you own the room, you can't help what's happening out on the streets. As a teacher, you own the 4 walls.
Yeah.
That's when we started seeing some real change. And then, of course, we took distractions away. No overhead announcements in the classrooms. We try to limit that as best we can. And then, of course, a sense of purpose and owning this place.
Right.
And that's not just in the teachers, that's in the kids.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Talk about that. That's what I started doing. What I've said for 30 years, 27 of them anyway, as a principal or assistant principal, is if you love a place, if you love your high school, it's going to love you back. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you something, and you've heard this, it's going to give you something that nobody can take away from you. But you have to leave it better than you found it. And that's been really our premise of changing the climate and culture of our school, basically making it more personal, making it more personable, focusing on the good things, not telling students what they can't do, because they get that all the time, but tell students that what they can do while they're here. They can have friends, they can meet new people. And I'm not talking about necessarily academically. I'm just talking about socially too.
Yeah.
You may meet your future spouse
Right.
in high school.
Yeah.
I did. Um, and so all of these things were the blueprint, if you will, for the direction of our school. And while it seems like a high mark, we're only 74 points away from what would be considered an A. And I think we're well on the way. And I may be so bold to say this. We've just taken our interim assessments, preparing for that high stakes exam in May or April. And we're showing growth in our English 910, in our biology. Our math scores are growing, which is really unheard of. And you mix all of that in, I think we've got one of the greatest places on earth.
That's amazing. And your point, and approach, regarding ownership, such a important but often underutilized, misunderstood, aspect of things. And the thing that I tell people, I'm like, look at the difference between how you or anyone treats a car you own versus a rental car. Right? Have you ever taken a rental car for a car wash? Ever? Nobody ever has, because it's not mine. I'm not gonna, like, well, I'm just in this thing temporarily, and someone else will take care of that. And you just, they may leave stuff on the floor, but your own car, no, it's yours, and you take a sense of pride in it, and you judge yourself in part by it, and people judge you in part by it, and that sense of ownership just really makes you step up and improve it, not only for yourself but for everyone else who's associated with it.
And that's really, I had a wise gentleman tell me of many, many, many years ago. He said, and I preach this to these kids, and it's along the same lines of owning something. And what's really cool about this is that these kids in this building can repeat this because they have heard it so many times. You spend half your life trying to leave home and the other half trying to go back.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's fantastic. That's so true. I've never heard that.
it
That's
is, whether it's a memory or whether it's physically like I did, where I actually got to come back home.
Yeah.
But what's really cool, Jeremy, yesterday we had what we call our Ames Assembly, and Ames is basically math and science AP. It's an AP, kids who score 3, 4, 5 on their AP exams in the spring. We celebrate them with a big assembly where we invite their parents and the entire student body. It comes to our gymnasium where we recognize those kids and give them certificates and medals and things of that nature. But what's really funny is yesterday, just randomly, I have a student named Isabella who is brilliant. She's going to Notre Dame. But I said, I asked Isabella, I said, Isabella, stand up. Now there's 2,400 people in this arena. And she stood up and I said, Isabella, and I've got the microphone. She's standing out in the crowd. And I said, okay, you're going to finish this statement. You spend half your life trying to leave home. And she said, the other half trying to come back. And the whole place started clapping. So all of these kids in this building have heard me say that 1,000 times.
Right.
And I believe that if you can motivate those kids to understand that statement, they'll leave this place better than they found it. And the proof is in the data or the pudding, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
With our growth scores on that high stakes assessment, with the climate and the culture that we have in our building, it's a calm place. It's a place that people love to come back to. It's the first high school in the city of Fort Smith. The building that I'm sitting in today will be 100 years old in 2 years.
Okay.
And it has been well taken care of. And kids pick up trash. It's amazing to see this because, a lot of people have a perception of the youth today as if they don't care. And I've actually challenged people to come in this building. And I would guarantee you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you would have kids greet you and they would hold the door open for you. And they would say, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am.
That's fantastic.
Or yes, sir, and no, sir. I have no doubt about that.
I love that. That is fantastic. It really is. And it lifts everything, right? Just everyone behaving that way lifts everybody to behave that way and better. It becomes sort of both a floor that you don't dip below and a sort of ceiling to aspire.
Correct. We're always moving this needle, if you will, in a better way, in a positive way. We do stumble or stub our toe occasionally. I mean, there are days when it gets I've never, and this is a bold statement, and people who will be listening and watching this program probably won't believe this statement, but I've really never had a bad day. Has there been days that were trying? Of course. But what's really fun about that is that when you have teachers in your building who have the 1,000-foot view versus your 15,000-foot view, and if you're having a day that is less than stellar, what I've learned is to go ask teachers in your building how their day is going. And so you get a perception, or excuse me, you get an idea about how your building is being taken care of and how your building is being run when you go to specific teachers or just random teachers and you've had a difficult day, if you will, and you just go ask. And I've challenged the assistant principals in this building. If your day has been a bit trying or challenging, be okay with that. But if you want to be uplifted, go find a random teacher and ask them how their day was. And I bet you they're going to tell you. They've put that into practice. And we meet as an admin team every morning at 7:15, 7:20 before the bell at 8. And I'll ask them sometimes, well, how was your day today or yesterday? Well, it's a bit tough. I said, well, did you go around and ask anybody else how their day was? And just this morning, one of our assistant principals was in the lunchroom during breakfast, and a coach was in there, and he put it into practice because he had a trying day yesterday. And he said, Coach, how was your day yesterday? And Coach looked at him kind of funny. He said, it was great. I said, told you.
I love that. But circling back to the the career connected learning, the CTE, talk to me a little bit how you approach or balance those two things, college prep versus sort of the career connected learning.
In this district, Jeremy, we have something that is really, I'm going to say, a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to other districts. We have what's called our Peak Innovation Center. And so our Peak Innovation Center is a standalone educational building, if you will, that is solely for our career tech ed kids. They do what's called I won't call it a blended schedule, but we are tasked with students who might want to be an LPN, a welder. It has robotics out there. And I'd be remiss if I tried to name all of the programs.
How many do you think we have different pathways?
I don't know. I don't know. I'd be embarrassed if anybody above me heard me try to guess. So,
but over a dozen?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful. I encourage you when we get finished chatting to Google that and just look at it because it can give you a rundown. We partner with some industries here in our city who have supported that, not only financially, if you will, but also providing opportunities for students to do internships in their industry, which has really blossomed. And I'm going to guess we probably from Northside, the number is going up about every year. And please remember, we have two high schools in our city. We have Northside, which is obviously on the north side of town. We have Southside, and we're about the same size, about 2,200 kids apiece.
Yeah.
And I want to say that we send two buses out there, a morning and afternoon session that kids can pick from, whatever fits their schedule, to where they can go out and get some hands-on instruction in regards to career and tech ed. And what's really interesting is that the number of students who are choosing that pathway is growing. And that was a task that was given to me as an incoming principal. How are you going to grow the Peak Innovation Center's programs while balancing schedules and all of that, and all of that, and really the importance of what a kid chooses to do. We have here our students choose a pathway when they're in the 8th to 7th grade, maybe even before that, where a career pathway. And that career pathway is flexible to about the 10th grade, and then it has to be nailed down.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can't shift.
Right.
So if you have a kiddo who says they want to be a nurse, well, their pathway could be through the Peak Innovation Center, where they get their LPN license and then go on into nursing school somewhere.
Right.
Or it could be, construction, if you will, where they can go out and learn how to be a welder.
Yeah.
And all of these things are really financially lucrative, if you will. I've had students that had left the Peak Innovation Center after a couple of years and gone and gotten welding jobs that's paying, $50 and $60 an hour.
Yeah.
And they're 18 years old.
Yeah. No, it is wild. Now, do you find that most of the kids, I mean, if you know this, that most of the kids who are in the CTE tracks, that they go right from high school into the workforce, or they go from high school to trade school and then into the workforce?
I think there's a little bit of both, depending on what certifications they get out there.
Yeah.
I know that kids do, when they get their certification out there, they do look for opportunities in trade schools. For example, we've got a business here in town that is an HVAC/plumbing business. And he's a very good partner with our school district. And as a plumber and an HVAC guy, obviously you have to extend that learning to a trade school before you can really start making the money and working for that company. And so he's partnered with the Peak Innovation Center, and then I don't know what trade school, if any, he's actually leaning towards or leans towards, to where those kids, he gives them internship, and I guess, what's it called? A journeyman, I guess,
Oh,
or
journeyman or apprentice or whatever.
apprentice. That's apprentice is the word I'm looking for, and gives them the opportunity to go ahead and be employed, but send them to a trade school where they can learn the business itself and how to be a plumber or a heating and air guy.
Gotcha. That's great. What do you think's the most, and I think you may have touched on them, but what do you think's the most important elements of kind of the CTE program and a career connected learning?
I think that starting early is one of the most important facets of this. I think that because we offer other things on our campus that are obviously tied to career and tech ed. We have our family consumer science classes. We have our computer. We also have introduction to education, where teacher or kiddos are in that pathway to possibly become a teacher at some point. So I know it doesn't really line up with some of the things that you're talking about. However, it is part of that CTE program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, computer science, we have that. So all of these things are really a building block to a kiddo trying to find their way, if you will. And I always think of myself whenever I think about kiddos today having to make decisions. As a 15, 16-year-old kid, I had no idea what I was going to do. Obviously, I said that in the outset of this discussion, that somebody would have said, you're going to be the principal of the high school 35 years from now. I'd have laughed in their face. But
right. Yeah. You had a clear idea. You may not have known what you wanted to do, but you knew what you weren't going to do. And you weren't
exactly how
high school.
There's no way. So I think today's students and today's youth are a little bit obviously different than, in a good way, if you will, than folks that are my age or even your age, where it is more streamlined. There is more offerings out there for students, and it touches on some of their interests. And then if they get into something at an early age, and I'm talking third grade, an elementary student, and then they move through the pathway and find their niche in a career class or classes, and then end up at our Peak Center. And then they go into the workforce. I mean, these kids are, some of them are actually graduating from out there with an associate's degree, because we also partner with our local university here in town. So it's really an amazing process, and it's really an amazing thing to see, if you will. And thing's not a good word, but it's not a very academic word, but it's really cool to see these kids come through this program and then graduate high school with a certification in something that they can immediately go to work, or they're already eligible to enter a trade school.
Right. No, that's fantastic. I love it. What's some of the challenges or the hardest things about kind of the career connected learning program, sort of the speed bumps that you run into?
Some of it is a logistical thing because schedules don't line up for kids to where they can go out, and there's some prerequisites to entering the Peak Center. I think you have to obviously be an upperclassman. 9th and 10th graders, 9th graders especially, aren't really ready to go out there, not because of their maturity level, but because they still have prerequisites that they have to get out of the way to graduate from high school. And so, I think that's not really a roadblock, if you will, but it's more of
adds
a bit of a
complexity.
challenge.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes total sense. Do you find that sort of forming the industry partnerships and getting, you know, help from industry, whether it's for, apprenticeships or internships or whatever it might be, do you find that to be challenging, or does the community sort of just
Our city is about 100,000 people proper. Surrounding areas, if you did a metropolitan, I don't know if you know where I'm at geographically, not really far from you in Kansas City. I think I'm about 3.5 hours from you south. We're right on the Oklahoma border. And so the metropolitan population is probably 300,000. So we have industry in our city. We have local businesses like the HVAC and plumbing business and it's a rather large commercial plumbing HVAC business. But we don't really have a problem with partnering with these folks.
That's great.
They really step up and help us. If we have kiddos who want to intern at the local what's called like ABF, which is Arkansas Best Freight, we have kids that work out there. We have kids at what's called ABB, which is an engine building. It employs tons of engineers, mechanical, chemical, tons. And it's a big industry. And I'd be remiss if I tried to name all of them because I won't be able to. But, Planters Peanuts is here, ABF, Mars Pet Food, ABB, which used to be called Baldorf. So we have some really great opportunities for kids to enter the industry workforce because we're able to partner with these folks, and their door has always been open, and they support us, again, not necessarily financially, but just by giving students the opportunity to see how these things work. And then it goes hand in hand with what they're learning at the Peak Innovation Center, which makes it a really cool process to see.
Fantastic. And so then sort of my last question is there any question that I should have asked you or that you wished I had asked you that I didn't?
I hope that you can tell that I'm really passionate about the things that we do in Fort Smith, and especially at Northside High School, and that the goal is to graduate students to make them productive citizens in our society today. And our graduation rate at Northside in particular, I haven't seen last year's, for example, was about 93%. So, you obviously want it to be 100, but if you can get over that 90, 92, 3% threshold, that's pretty good for a school of 700 graduates, if you will, a year.
Yeah. And especially, like you said, considering where you started, right, as a D
Correct.
school, right, to be able to do that, B school in 4 years, B school with 93+%, graduation rate, like that's pretty remarkable.
It wasn't just me. I don't ever take that kind of ownership over any of this. As a matter of fact, I told yesterday I did give that speech or give a speech to our Ames Assembly kids. And one of the things that my dad told me when I was about 11 years old was, he said, "Son, you're not real smart." And he said, "The reason why I know that is because I know where you came from." And of course, I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or just run off. And finally, he said, "But let me finish this statement. If you surround yourself with smart people, you're going to look like a genius. So your goal in life is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, that can help you in any of the decisions that you have to make." And Jeremy, quite honestly, that's what I've done. I surrounded myself with 2,200 smart people, 150 smart teachers, 75 or 80 smart classified staff. And it just makes me look good. That's the bottom line.
It's the truth. Honestly, just looking back at American history, that George Washington was not the brightest guy. He was no dummy, but he was fine intellectually, but he was very wise and surrounded himself with the smartest men of the time and knew, whose counsel to take when for what.
Sure.
And how to apply it. But it didn't, come from his brain. It came from the brains of the people that he was smart enough to surround himself with.
That has honestly been my approach for the 30 years I've been doing this. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Exactly.
It has really flown by, and it's been a really good ride for me. and I've been very blessed. So
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, Chris, I wanted to thank you for joining me on Career High. This has been great. I love getting to hear your kind of your story and not only where you've gone, but where you've taken the school again from DE in 4 years. I can't imagine where it's going to be I'm not even gonna say 10, but like 2 years, because of the things you've done and the approach you take. And so sincerely, thank you for joining me. It's been fantastic.
absolutely.